the theme is not to look for a job, but to build relationships, because those relationships
Exactly.
can lead to referrals.
Maybe my first practical step is to take that first step. Who is the first person do you know in your life that you haven't seen in years or talked to in a while that you're just thinking, I'd love to catch up with that person? And think of one thing you'd like to learn from them and that you could offer for them in that conversation. Maybe a practical one would be go to LinkedIn, look up your industry, look up your workspace, look up your community, and pick one topic you're interested in. It's AI and supply chain. And follow one new person, follow one new group, just to start to consume different information that might start to spark some of the curiosity we've been talking about where you can learn and go.
And good day, everybody, and welcome back to the Smart podcast. And I'm Walter, I'm the Dutch mentor, where S stands for self-care, M for mindful growth, A for adaptive learning, R for rhythmic operations, T for thriving community, and of course, P for performance. Today, we're going to have an interesting talk. We'll dive a little deeper into the human behaviors around transitioning into a new role, or at least getting ready for your interview. And the second part is, how do we need to incorporate AI, or how do we need to think about AI as we start building new skills and habits to make sure that we're ready for the future? Carlee, welcome to the show today. I'm really glad to have you. Let's get the ball rolling and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. I love this topic. Just real quickly, I have spent my career in HR doing leadership development and org effectiveness. Currently, I work at Hyatt Hotels organization, so that's global. And I'm also in the passion of career and culture. Do a lot of work here in Baltimore, Maryland, with workforce, and also help people with their one-to-one career conversations.
Very good. So, listen, I think we have 8 billion people in the world, or thereabouts.
Something
All of
like
them are
that.
looking at some point in time for a new job. They all have to get ready for an interview. And from my personal experience, having dealt with hundreds of clients, most of them are ill prepared to go to an interview. So, talk to us a little bit about, from your perspective, both what do leaders or emerging leaders need to do to be ready to go into transition, and what kind of behaviors and other skills and attributes do they need to work on in order to prime the pump to be successful?
Yeah. I think one thing I'd say that's maybe a little bit kind of like a longer term view is always be ready. I think, having conversations both with yourself and how you're thinking about your career with others in networking, just to kind of prepare yourself. Like, what do I stand for? What do I have to offer in the market? So I would start with that. If someone's actively interviewing, I'd say, how are you looking at like the skills and experience you have to offer the organization, and really kind of do a deep dive on that against the job description around what you've read on different forums like a Glassdoor, a Fishbowl, etc. Finding people in your network that might know the organization or the hiring manager. In other words, do your homework both about the job, the place, and then sort of the we'll call it the word of mouth type of information that's out there, and be really targeted around that preparation. So if a job requires for a certain type of experience or skill set, how are you thinking back to your past and saying, here's where I've done that, or here's where I've done adjacent type of experience or have related skills that might serve me well in an interview. For example, if I am a project manager and I'm interviewing for somewhere in healthcare, but I've never worked in healthcare, well, have you worked in a related field? Have you worked in, I don't know, pharma where you might have research? Have you worked in anywhere that has operations? Because then healthcare and hospital is operations. How do I think about those skills that can transfer over? The last thing I'll add on this point is in the prep, using tools. So I think traditionally people might look to self prep, but I think being able to prep with others, I think leveraging AI like a chat GPT to say, hey, I'm interviewing for this project manager role at this company. I lead this amount of people. I'm going to be running these types of projects. Here's the job description. Give me 10 interview questions that I can prep on, and type in your response, and you can ask it, give me feedback. How can I think about things? So these are also leveraging tools that are out there to prep. Not to mention the slew of other AI tools where you can literally, I'm talking to you today, you can see me. We have tools where they can read your tone, watch your body language. So these are all things that you can also up your game on.
Yeah, listen, the key thing is I always say Brene Brown uses it and says it best. It's that you do not need to go at it alone, right? It is that the best preparation is done with somebody else, and certainly I encourage my team members also to use AI as a prep session. But I'm going to go a step back. You used the word networking.
Hmm.
And we all know that the higher up the food chain, the less likely it is that you will get a job by directly applying, because you're really finding, if you're fighting the bots, it's much more important that you have a personal connection with that. So tell us a little bit from your perspective. How can somebody effectively network?
Yeah. And real quick, let me add, you mentioned the bots, so it's not only just higher up in a traditional sense, but today in the marketplace, what was it I read the other day? Over 40% of jobs are what they call ghost jobs. So not just bots, but even things that are like hanging out there, right? They've been posted, they haven't been taken down, they accidentally got put up there. So these are the things where you can also leverage your network to kind of clear the noise. But in terms of networking, I want to make sure I address everybody in this because not everyone loves networking. And some people, their favorite thing in the world is networking. And so I always like to look at it from one, what do you have to sort of offer the world? And what are you looking to sort of connect with others on? And not in a I have something to barter per se, but literally just from a connection standpoint, starting somewhere. Like, hey Sally, I saw that you used to play volleyball. I coach, or I used to do the same. Like I'm this kind of sparked a thought for me. I'd be curious to connect with you, right? Just to have like a personal handshake to begin with. But I also think it breaks down where does that relationship continue? Where can you offer and build the relationship on? So I started with volleyball just as like a nice, like, personal way to connect. But really, like, from a job standpoint, it might be let's keep pulling on the AI thread. Hey, I work in HR. I'm really curious about AI. Hey, John, I saw that you're in the similar field. What are you doing at your organization? So I share this as an example because one, it's an offer to connect, right? I'm building my network. Two, there's kind of a shared purpose there. We're both learning from each other. And then from that connection, it's, hey, let's stay in touch. Where can we support one another, etc. So trying to give a simple example, but back to my spectrum of people who love networking will take this and they'll be like, yes, I'm on it. For those that are thinking, gosh, I really, this isn't my thing, I always go with like, really think about like the one area that you think you not can just offer, but that you're interested in and where can you meet people where you're comfortable? Maybe it's not LinkedIn. Maybe it's the social forum that you're a part of, like on Slack, for example. Start in the places that you're comfortable with to kind of build that. So trying to give some practicality on both ends, but networking is huge. It plays value not in, only in the job search, but I'm going to say in the job search might be too late. I think you should be thinking about your network way ahead of time so that you've built those relationships already and that you can tap into those when you need.
Yeah, I think you started off by saying that you should prepare for an interview when you start a new job, right? It is that you really have to start working on you, your profile, your personal brand, your digital footprint, and of course networking throughout your career, right? Because you never know; there always should be a plan B just in case something is going to happen.
Yeah.
So
And I,
before I dive, go
do you
ahead.
mind if I add to that? Because I think
Sure.
work is changing. I think we're moving more to, I'm going to use like the term marketplace. It's sort of a little bit more open. Like I'm building new skills. Maybe the organizations are evolving, new roles are popping up. Fill in the blank reason. I think being ready, networking, thinking about your skills, evolving your skills, everything that, by the way, would also prepare you for an interview. I think this should just be a part of our jobs. Like just the good routines around being a professional and evolving how we continue to grow in our space. So if it's maybe we flip it, it's not about job prep, it's about like career growth, career involvement, and networking and connection and staying ready about what I have to offer is all part of
Yeah,
that.
it's called being a professional, uh,
Exactly.
and and and, and you
Exactly.
and you should include being a member of professional organizations associated with your line of work, right? It is that's where you can find other like-minded people, at least people who are passionate about the same topic, but also expand way beyond what you are working with, right? The folks that you work with from different companies, a different perspective. So
Totally.
I want to just before I go on to the AI skills piece, because I'm interested in that going into the future itself. You mentioned something about the three C's and the behaviors. Tell me a little bit what you mean with that, and how does it apply to a candidate?
Yep. So the three C's that I like to think about. So first of all, curiosity, being curious about where you're going, what is your passion, what you can offer, and those things helping to provide you clarity on where you can navigate, and then having the confidence to make those moves. So those are the three C's for me. I think these are especially important right now because the workplace and work is just becoming more gray, right? Like what's next for me, what's happening in my industry. And so I'll just start with curiosity for professionals to remain curious about themselves. What else do I want to learn? What else is happening in my field? What fields are emerging? I think that keeps us on our toes and fresh about what we can be doing, which by the way, then starts to build clarity around where we can go. So in a gray space, our person, we can be curious and be pursuing, which gives us our own clarity, right? Things around me can be gray, but if I'm clear about what I have to offer and where I can go, that also then fuels some of the confidence that I want to take forth in my next steps.
Yeah, I love it. It's so sad to think about it. 60% of the workforce goes to work not really loving what they do, right? And
I
that
know.
is and you have one life to live, and it's a shame that you feel like doing that. I always say a good parameter is to ask yourself, how do I feel on Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock? Do I feel anxious about having to go back to work? And you probably fit into that 60% category. And I think people should take action around that. I
I
use the
agree.
four P's. It is always about purpose and passion. Something just like you said that needs to feel good in your heart level self. And then if you get to do with the people and work with the processes you really enjoy, if you can combine those four together, and that leads you to the three C's. You're really hitting home runs. And people are too afraid to step out of their comfort zone, even if they really don't love the comfort zone, but it's still the comfort zone, and pursue their dreams. Right? I've made three very distinctive changes in my career path along the way, really consciously to make sure that I was able to do the things I truly love to do,
Yeah.
while still providing for my family at the same time. So I want to transition now to the skills section. So often when we look at resume, CVs, or we interview people, they will tell you that they are experts at 10 to 15 things, which I say, listen, that's nonsense. It's rarely that you find. So you really should narrow that down to the two or three that are truly differentiating strengths, real things that you can take real stories about, with real measurements, and prove that you are an expert at that. Looking into the future, of course, AI is becoming more and more prominent in
Hmm.
our lives, and of course, the future and integration of AI. So, how should people look at it, things today? What should they do today in order to be able to add something to their resume that shows some level of competency or even proficiency in AI?
Yeah. So I, excuse me, I look at this in two ways. So one is just, I'll call it like baseline AI. How are you starting to get, we'll use one of the C's, curious about what's out there if you haven't even started, which by the way, you have. AI is integrated in basically everything that we do. It's been out there for years. Now we're just in a different phase of where it's adding to our lives and shifting in how we work. But get into it, right? Start with I mean, ChatGPT is like the biggest one, the easiest one to begin with, but other things like Perplexity, right? Just begin and start with access, with asking questions. The other way I would say is that's the use of the tool. Where can you start to like use some of this language? So you and I are talking about tools, but even things like what's generative AI? Where do I start with that? What are things like prompting? How do I evolve how I used to Google search and now I'm using it more in an AI capacity? So start with the basics. That's one part of it. I think the other part is, are there any tools out there that I can use in my job or in my life just to kind of get a flavor for the expanded capabilities that are out there? So this is maybe I'll use your personal venture. What are you passionate about? And just do some good old research around what AI tools exist for. I don't know, say I'm a mom or a dad and I'm trying to like optimize my schedule. What's out there in the AI world that can help me with that? By the way, there's probably 30 things. And that's where we're at, right? So I'll put that we'll call it an AI bucket, AI exploration curiosity. The other part of it, I'd say, especially as it relates to careers, is what's happening in my field or in my industry that are emerging trends that I might want to be thinking about. So, say I work in supply chain. well, how is AI changing supply chain and maybe even specifically my role so that I can start to be curious about what might evolve and what skill sets I might want to start to build or gain some confidence on. I think in both of those categories, there are a ton of resources. So we've talked about associations. They're both paid associations, and there's a ton of free things out there. We've also talked about like different trainings that people can get into. There's free ones for that. So I just encourage people to get creative and find a forum, a space, a place for you to be able to not just explore, but to then start to build those skills. And in the AI space, there are a ton of very active networks out there that are passionate about their industries and about their particular professions. And I'll just give an example. I'm in several that are in HR. I'm in a women's AI group, right? They come in all different shapes and sizes. And so is the other benefit to being in these types of places is so much is changing and everyone's trying to figure it out. Everyone's learning. In fact, if you meet someone that's like, I got it all figured out, I'd be worried about that. That's like an overstatement in a place where we're just literally all beginning. So back to the beginning, I would also underscore that part. Everybody's beginning. And so if you're afraid, just start to take that one step. Just start to be curious, talk to people, talk to your friends, family, bring it to your next dinner. What did you guys learn about AI today? So maybe a couple of ways to think about it. But ultimately, it's all forward to how can I evolve and learn so I can build the clarity that I need about what I can contribute and then start to build that confidence in your own career steps.
Yeah, so thank you for that. It is so finishing up the conversation. I would like to have your thoughts on this. So we go back to networking because it's such an important piece of the puzzle. How can people use AI to network today?
Good one. I'll start with an easy entry point, perhaps, which is I'll reference something we've already talked about around ChatGPT. Hey, like start with like, hey, I work in technology. I run X product. I'm looking to evolve my career over the next 2 years. I want to move into management. What would be certain titles or companies that might be good for me to network? Give me a 3-month plan to help me network and where I can find these people to network with. Boom, you'll get like a AI, generated plan for you to help network. Now, this is where, right, you want to look at it and see what's relevant. You want to apply it, but I'll just start there because I want to like continue to go on our learning journey. I think the other places, starting with big forums like a LinkedIn and kind of tapping in and saying, because those are also generated by tools, skill sets I'm looking for, industries I'm looking for, locations I'm looking for. You and I have right been talking about maybe more specific around industry and role. But listen, there's a lot of value to also networking with people outside of your spaces. Like start with your communities. What do you do? What are you up to? What are you learning? So I'll kind of maybe fold it into those two very practical and hopefully approachable places, but very diverse. And also one's self-generated, one's like pretty open discovery. And I hope that gives people a place to
Yeah, I
begin.
think that's a great suggestion, and I think that the theme is not to look for a job, but to build relationships because those relationships
Exactly.
can lead to referrals, and it really is about how you present yourself, asking good questions, and interacting with that. Listen, Carlee, great stuff. I'm sure we could talk about this stuff for hours.
All
Give
day.
me give me one or two actionable takeaways from our conversation today that the listeners can do today to start advancing their thought process and utilization of AI.
Yeah. I'm gonna layer this with they got this. You and I have talked about a lot of points that might feel like barriers or scary things, and so I just encourage people just to go after it. So maybe my first practical step is to take that first step. Who is the first person? I'm just gonna give an easy one in the networking space. Who do you know in your life that you haven't seen in years or talked to in a while that you're just thinking, I'd love to catch up with that person? And think of one thing you'd like to learn from them and that you could offer for them in that conversation. So we're gonna warm our network with an easy exercise. I think the second thing is maybe a practical one would be go to LinkedIn, look up your industry, look up your workspace, look up your community, and pick one topic you're interested in. Maybe it's AI and supply chain, and follow one new person, follow one new group, just to start to consume different information that might start to spark some of the curiosity we've been talking about where you can learn and go. Two practical tips and maybe just getting people started. But I'll end where I started with that, which is I encourage people to have that curiosity. We have faith and support in you. Take your passions and your skills and onward, because there's a lot of opportunity for people out there.
It is. You got to be brave. You got to be courageous, and you have to take action. Right? Is that if you don't, you likely will be left behind. Right? You don't want to be the blockbuster, video of employees or into the future. Because listen, we need to continuously re-engineer and stay with the times itself. So, all right, where can people find you, Carlee?
Always happy to connect with people on LinkedIn. I post a lot actually about these topics. They can also find me at acenarroconsulting.com. Either one of those are great.
Okay, wonderful. Again, thank you for joining us today. What is your parting thought?
It's an exciting world out there. We all have something to contribute, to gain, and enjoy the journey.
Excellent. Listen, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Enjoy your weekend. And to the audience, I will see you the next time. Have a great day, everybody.